So, Jeff, I'm pretty excited about talking about our next topic.
What do you
This
got?
is something that you and I have talked about before, but we never made a list. And today we're going to do your top 5 greatest all-time in-ring opponents for Jeff Jarrett.
Oh,
This is going to be fun because you've wrestled literally everyone from Shark Boy to Ric Flair and everyone in between. And we're going to name your top 5 greatest opponents in the ring. And I can't wait to run through that. Number 5, we'll get started right there at number 5 is AJ Styles. Jeff, how does AJ Styles come in at number 5 on your list?
when I got the message that, okay, come up with your top 5 goats, your in-ring goats. And I'm thinking, man, there was so much like, where do I start? Is this all time? Am I going back to the 40s, 50s, and 60s? You know, like because of all the data, and I'm kind of a history junkie in wrestling, and but also, you know, all promotions, and I think there's legends in Mexico and Japan. So we collectively figured out, all right, it's just the folks for this list are the people that have actually been in the ring, had matches. And then I thought, all right, you know, some one-offs. Like, do I include those guys? You know, I think I wrestled old Mr. Nick Bockwinkel more than once, but really only one kind of marquee match. And I mean, he was fantastic. And then the one that really jumps off the page that I just want to clarify, that don't have expectations they're going to be in my top 5. And it's one of my all-time favorites, and that goes Bryan Danielson. But I really only had 2 matches, maybe a 6-man, but I had that one single. So I just don't think, okay, I hadn't been in the ring. And Bryan, I think his storytelling in the modern era, he has very, if any, peers. So the 5 that I picked are the folks that I've had multiple matches with. And when I really think about AJ Styles, it's impossible not to put him in my top 5. And the reason I say that is, yeah, I got AJ as a young Allen. I mean, straight out of landscaping, if you will, and making the drive up to Nashville and doing the Asylum, and then, you know, several marquee matches, this one for the world title, and Tito, the special guest referee. But he was one of the guys that as we evolved as a feud and a rivalry, you know, at the beginning, I essentially called everything, so to speak. But as time went on, I did. That's a shot from the United Kingdom. I wrestled him all over the world. We wrestled each other in South Korea. There's so many different places I wrestled AJ, but man, our feuds and our chemistry went from, I was definitely the ring vet. And then as he grew and matured and his thought process, God almighty, he's just, I know I've said this, he's so damn athletic, but his charisma and his development to who AJ Styles is as a performer, even today, I got to witness, and I'm grateful I got to witness to in a lot of ways, to see Alan Jones come of age, you know, in so many ways. And again, he like a Ricky Morton babyface type in those early days. Man, oh man, he connected with the audience so good.
When do you remember? I mean, obviously, we're talking about the evolution of him. I mean, he's probably one of the more physically talented, just in ring stuff. But when did he become, in your opinion, a well rounded performer? And what I ask is, Bruce Pritchard, even though it was a lot of people were critical of like the Claire Lynch segment, where he had more gaga, more story, less in ring bell to bell, because we all knew when the bell rang, man, you're in for a real treat if AJ Styles is there. He's going to pull some stuff off that you're like, how did he physically do that? But Bruce, even though fans were critical of that story, said that may have been the thing that caught Vince's attention above all else, because it showed that he could act. I mean, I don't know another way to say it, but he could deliver a story. There was depth of that character. He had range, is maybe the right thing to say. He wasn't, quote unquote, just a wrestler. When do you remember being like, aha, this is more than just what gets over on the indies, or more than just what gets over in Ring of Honor? He's got sports entertainment figured out, and he's ready to jump to WWE. Do you remember you having a light bulb moment like that with him?
Era, light bulb moment era, no doubt. And look, he was partnered with Russo in SEX, Sports Entertainment Extreme, and the Asylum days, and then the we'll call it the Grand Slam winner kind of early in the Impact Zone. But Conrad, and this is to me, I always will kind of gravitate to this on a what if. In 2009, I think TNA, well, I don't think, but from a creative perspective and the ratings, you can look at it January until August, September that year. That was sustained. They were the heights. You could just mark it down. Go ask Kevin K. But rolling through that, the story that was told was organic, very realistic base, because it was the Main Event Mafia, 5 guys that were not, you can say however you want. They were all former world champions, but they had all built their name. Steiner, Kurt, Sting, Booker, Nash, all outside of TNA. And that was a real deal. And then the front line was AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels. I mean, we could go down that whole list. And me and Mick Foley were torn between the two. And so we did a lot of storytelling. And that is, to me, what was why we were doing almost 2 million viewers a week consistently. And the show would start at a number and we would do 8 segments. And lots of times seg 8 was the highest because we would build it. I give Kurt a ton of credit. Mick Foley, he made me so much better as the founder character, but because of we were torn between, we knew the young guys needed to be having the light shined on, and the old guys, a lot of respect, but we were playing this out. But AJ was the leading actor, if you will, and there was some dialogue and content that was given to AJ, and Russo was producing quite a bit of it. There was a bunch of guys. But I would watch that and we would come back and do some stuff in the studio, or I would watch back a pre-tape on set and I would just go, damn, AJ has come a long way, man. That shit was, just real, authentic, timing, emotional, didn't say too much, didn't feel nervous. It felt just flowing. And to me, that 2009 year is when, okay, you said it, like a well-rounded, but I'm just like, okay, here we go. I mean, he was the leading protagonist on that side. It was AJ against Kurt, and you just kind of line it up. It was, to me, really good TV, and that was the era when AJ took his game to another level and really never looked back, in my opinion. I think the Claire and all that, it does kind of get a bad rep at times, and this and that, and the Nature Boy deal. Like AJ survived a lot of stuff and a lot of, I'll call it, in my opinion, crappy creative, but that's the mark of a great performer. Take something that's average and make it better. AJ could do that.
Well said, because let's not pretend that Cody and Roman and John Cena and every other top guy didn't have a fair share of kind of creative as well.
It comes with the territory. Creative is so damn hard. And when it's bad, creative gets blamed. When it's good, the talent gets the credit. So you've got to be good for creative to be good. And AJ took the we'll call it the frontline Main Event Mafia story. He took it and made it better. Man, him and Kurt had some freaking unbelievable segments because it was real. Anyway, I could go in a rabbit hole, but Nash and Booker. Nash, arguably in the most famous, well-known storyline, however you want to cachet it, the NWO storyline changed so many things, and Nash was front and center on that. Booker had a massive role in the WWE, WCW transition. Sting goes without saying, the face of a company for 15, 20 years. Kurt, Scott, former world champion, just all that. And then AJ on the other side of the ring, and the people, because he was their guy since day one. It was good stuff.
Speaking of good stuff, now that we're finished with number 5, here's who comes in at number 4 on Jeff's list of the top 5 in-ring opponents of his career. Kurt Angle lands in the number 4 spot. And it took a few years in TNA for Kurt to cross paths with you. Was that something that you knew, hey, let's make them wait for it. We'll get there. Because it feels like as soon as he's in the company, you'd be wringing your hands like, oh, I can do something with this guy. Tell me about Kurt at number 4.
Remember, my personal life going on in 06, 07 was a challenge, to say the least. My professional life.
We're talking about Jill there, just so everybody knows.
Oh yeah, passing of my first wife, and look, and I say that to give the full context. You know, when Jill passed away, she was a mother to a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and so I had 3 girls, and running a business that was growing at this point rapidly. So there was all kinds of challenges, and I've said this multiple times, and I just kind of referenced, it's funny how it's all coming together on this pod. I'd referenced that phone call I'd had with Bob Carter, and I said, Bob, this is our guy. Total Nonstop Action, that's Kurt. He's a wrestling machine, that's Kurt. He can talk, he can work, he can do all of this kind of stuff. And so in my mind, we were at a point, you can offer a guy a 7-figure deal. He's going to come in and do everything. I got to take my talent hat completely off, and the proof is kind of in this. Now, did I think I was going to be done wrestling? No, but I certainly was long gone out. And then, with the sickness of Jill and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it was Jeff way out and Kurt in, and just let it roll. And as time kind of built on, Dutch and Russo were the ones that said, hey man, there is a story here. And that's when we ended up having the Charlotte, that pay-per-view match over in Charlotte. That was the first deal. But man, that match and that setup and that build was intense. And then in 2010, when we had that year Angle, that's another thing. Like a Larry Bird, I know I'm dating myself, but you kind of look at folks that get on a field or a court or in a ring. That are you going to be selfish and make yourself look good at the expense of others? Or are you going to be the guy that not only raises your game, but everybody you're in the ring with, you're going to raise them to another level? When Kurt was on, he did that maybe better than anybody. He certainly took a Jeff Jarrett at this stage, 40, what was I? Right at, late 30s, early 40s. He just, to me, the timing, everything he knew how to put together was just, to me, at another level. Our intensity. So yeah, I just think, look, it goes without saying, Olympic gold medalist, the baby brother of 4 or 5 badasses that helped make him who he was today. He doesn't have a first or second or a third or a fourth or really even a 5th gear. I mean, he's right into high gear. And so you go back and watch Kurt's matches against, before he came to us, a Rey Mysterio, a Shawn, some others, they're off the charts. Then when you get him in TNA and specifically the AJ matches, the Abyss matches, there's multiple matches. You just know that you're looking at a performer that can perform at another level. There's certain guys that step on a basketball court that you go, or a football field, you go, oh, this guy can do that. That was Kurt to me.
Did he have an equal physically that you ran across? Like, I'm not saying that you didn't run across guys who were maybe stronger or guys who were faster, but I just mean as far as being an athlete, one of the things that always stood out to me about Kurt is when he talked about when he was training for the Olympics, he would train to the point of failure, and that's when he would really start training. When his body had completely given up, that's when he would really start getting serious. And that's such a foreign concept to most people. Like, if you train to failure, it's like, well, in theory, that should be it. That's when he would say he did his most growth on the other side of that failure. Like, physically, did you ever share the ring with anybody who was capable of doing what Kurt was?
When you're talking about start training when you fail, there's Becky Hammond's a basketball player, and I've heard stories about her training. Really doubling down, and she's a coach, executive, all that. But that was she would train herself to be able to shoot the ball when she was completely gassed. When I think of different athletes that I've been in the ring with, and we've talked about Mongo's just ridiculously great strength, but you wouldn't put him in that level. But his athleticism was in strength was on another level. I was just talking to a guy at the boat dock yesterday. The one thing he mentioned to me, and we didn't talk for long, was, "Hey, dude, did you see Brock Saturday night? How old is that guy? He's gotten, just talking about the physical specimen and everything that goes with it." But to me, a young Scott Steiner, not when he got past 260, 270, 280. I'm talking about Scott Steiner, 1988, 89, 90. Fast as hell, but he hadn't developed as the performer
Right.
that Kurt has. That's why Kurt, and that story, that the reality is he told WWE no the first time coming off that, and then him the fast track, and he did Memphis, but before he did the Dory camps, and then it all came together. His entry into the business in so many ways, he really entered at the right time because WWF was red hot, but Vince and team said, "Man, we've got to develop stars for tomorrow, and we got to fast track them." And Kurt having multiple matches with Owen Hart, dark matches or whoever it may be. So, but no, I think that's why Kurt is one of one when you layer it that way.
I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but I know in the last year, Kurt did an interview where he acknowledged that he knew that wrestling fans had a nickname for some of his work when he was in TNA. And I think that that's when the pain had become unmanageable for him. And maybe he became a little too reliant on painkillers. But a lot of fans who maybe didn't understand the context of what they were saying, that, hey, that's hurtful and that's a dark spot in his life. And he didn't like to be reminded of that. And I'm very appreciative that he was able to be open and honest and vulnerable about that, because I think that's the only way that we get better, is to just talk about those sort of things. But I say all that to say, do you think he would have been, he looked like Superman and he probably felt like Superman, but would it have been possible? Cause his injuries for a normal person, man, they may have signed up for disability, and now he's out here doing the unthinkable. Do you think he got himself, and you're not him, it's hard for you to put yourself in his mind, but you certainly know that line of thinking from your own past walk with that sort of thing, not necessarily with painkillers, but in another area of life. And do you feel like he thought at times that, hey, I need this to make me be that guy? Is that the crux of the wrestling business and what a lot of guys felt like in the 90s, maybe?
I'm not sure that I completely understand your question, but I'm going to say this: that the disease of addiction, uh, I know it well. It makes you a liar, makes you a thief, makes you a piece of garbage. It makes you self-centered, makes you an egomaniac. I could go down that whole kind of list of things, but it also, in Kurt's very much core DNA. I'll say this. It's my understanding he didn't drink or take a pill before he got into the wrestling business. So he became a gold medalist without pain. And so his drive to succeed is what made him great. Period. We can throw pain pills in and out of there, and maybe he, took some pills before matches, or the story about the Brock Iron Man match and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that's a slice of that. But in Kurt's DNA, he is a crazy, incredible athlete, but his drive to be the absolute best, and I'll say this, his confidence also helped him succeed through life. Whether he was or wasn't, he believed that he was the very best in the world when he was doing it week in and week out. If he believed that, that's all that mattered. It doesn't care what the critic said. It's the old FDR quote. It's not the critic that counts. It's the man in the arena. And that's what Kurt really doubled down on and focused on. And so I think he would have been the same performer with or without, maybe even a little better. That's hard to say, but no, I think that's his drive is what made him so good.
I just think respectfully, by the time he's wrestling you in TNA, I think he'd broken his neck 3 times. And so the idea that you go out there with, at this point, a chronic neck injury
Oh yeah.
that is never going to really totally get back to normal, whatever that means. There has to be a reliance if you're going to deliver those type of performances. Now, I mean, I shouldn't say there has to be. In my dumb hillbilly mind, it's like, man, how can you do all of that unless you have a little help? And I think at that point it becomes a double-edged sword. Like on the one hand, hey, you don't want anybody to have to do that. But because he did it, man, we got some of the greatest matches of all time. And I hate that for him, because I know that, based on, again, I haven't had a personal conversation with him, but I read the interview and I saw the interview where he acknowledged that, fans really like that version of his career, and that time period where he was sort of going through it. But now it's like a black cloud for him, even though it created so many fantastic in-ring moments, is what I'm trying to sort of tie together there.
In my mind, and look, this is just my subjective opinion. He succeeded to a level that is very hard to attain in spite of the disease of addiction. I truly believe that. In my own personal case, I think about how I survived, by the grace of God, the disease. But before I got really in that dark hole, the burning the candle at both ends with 3 girls and a business, and dealing with Dallas, and dealing with life, and dealing with work, and then my in-ring, and then dealing with 30 or 40 wrestlers, and then dealing with marketing and legal and finance and digital and production, and on and on and on. If I would have put the bottle down then, how much more productive would I have been? That's what the disease does. It just kind of fools you. So I think Kurt, in so many ways, succeeded to the highest of levels in spite of that damn disease.
Coming in at number 3, well, who else but the nature boy himself, Ric Flair. Why does Ric Flair land at number 3 on your list, Jeff?
And I've had before last match, because that, in so many ways, and it kind of amazes me, Conrad. Well, look, we won't get completely into this, but it kind of feels like we're just chopping it up, chatting it up here. But we talked about it right after it happened, maybe a year after it happened. But it really is 2 audiences, whether you were there live. No, 3. Whether you were there live, whether you watched it online, or you weren't there and want to comment about it. That Ric Flair's last match and everything built around that, it didn't lose sight on me. How old was Rick when we did that? 70, right? 60, 70. Anyway, his obviously over like a son of a bitch. The pomp and circumstance that went with it, but his aura in the ring at that stage of his career was incredible. I mean, it just kind of like, okay, it's almost as if I got to pitch to Babe Ruth, and slide it in there. But you go back to the photo that we're showing right now is the inducting into the 4 Horsemen, which I am, Conrad. You just
96 is what we're looking at there.
96. Pee Wee Anderson in the back. But no, on my 30th birthday, I got to wrestle Rick in Orlando, Florida. A memory, again, also I'll not forget. But the body of work, and look, I obviously worked with him in TNA and all that. But, I didn't have a ton of matches, but I did in 2000, had a couple. But just for me, coming up with the top 5 I've been in the ring with, how do I not put Rick in there in so many ways? And had we not had the last match, his last match, he still would have been there. But when you look at a performer and how all that came together, and I know you're my podcast partner, but as it related to this situation, you were the promoter of the event, and the undercard stacked, and the press conference, and they put on Mike Keith in the Titan Hall of Fame yesterday, brought back all those kind of memories. But Conrad, and again, I'm going back to, and I'm jumping all around here, I shouldn't have. got distracted there. Conrad, and I've told this story. When I saw Coco Ware versus Ric Flair in the Mid-South Coliseum, and everybody was in the building, was standing for the last 8-10 minutes of the match because they just knew, me being one of them, Coco was about to be the NWA's World Heavyweight Champion. And all those years later, I get to work with him as a Four Horseman. Then the WCW, the title changes, and then Ric Flair's last match. There's only one Rick. I still think I can plank longer than him, but there's only one Rick.
Can we get footage of you at a Waffle House doing a 5-minute plank? I know you're not going to go to a bar, but a Waffle House 5-minute plank.
Ooh.
I mean, he only did 4, and you could show him who the real Four Horseman is.
Now we're well. I could go to
do
first
5.
watch. I could do Cracker Barrel, First Watch, maybe Kiki's, but you're landing back on Waffle.
Well, I mean, listen, that's Old South. That's where you go every day. We all know that.
Now, where do I do it? Like, do I do it by the counter, by the register? Do I get over by a booth? Where would you like for me to do it?
That back corner, where they've got like the counter you can slide up against on the side, and there's booths over there.
Yep,
If there's nobody sitting in those seats at the counter, you'll have room to do it right there.
Conrad, if I get a picture and I'm on the bar, like the main bar.
Oh, that would be a home run, especially in Hendersonville. They'd let you do that.
Oh, Daniel, Keisha, no doubt. No, there's no doubt.
Well, let's do this. Let's make sure that the Queen goes with you. I know it's not her favorite place to eat, but
it's not
my wife's either. But you and I, boy, if we live by each other, that's where we do breakfast almost every day.
Waffle, yep.
But I'm just saying, if we could get you on the counter doing a 5-minute plank, and then he looks down the whole time. We need you to look up and every now and again just throw a little nature boy jab out there.
Ooh, okay.
And then stand up. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking what you're thinking, you got to hit the Fargo strut afterwards.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's tie this back into number 3, Ric Flair. In totality, that's who we're talking about in the world of wrestling. It's like, and I'm not the baseball junkie, but man, oh man, there are some crazy ass stories about Babe Ruth in his prime outside the ballpark, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, crazy stories, but that's Rick. I mean, just, yeah.
I think Rick at this point is like the John Daly of wrestling.
Oh, okay. Now, yes. I still like to refer to him as like a Babe Ruth. So
I'm not arguing that, but I'm saying John Daly's still with us.
Yeah.
And he, every now and again, you'll see him dancing on social media too.
Oh, for sure. No doubt.
Somebody else I know you have a lot of respect for comes in at number 2 on your all-time list. It's Jerry the King Lawler. Tell me about it, Jeff.
Connie, this is something that, because the top 5 I've been in the ring with, look, the nostalgia part of the podcast, but I really thought long and hard because today's world in ring, like, what does it mean? Are we talking about buy rates? Are we talking about ratings? Are we talking about merch? Are we, what metrics are we using here? And so I kind of juggled with the entire list, kind of thinking that through, but like in-ring performers that I worked with, and look, I'm certainly not the Hurricanrana guy or the tope and all that kind of stuff, and Lawler's not either, but the history that I have with him from a child, and then, getting to be, they're like, that's one of the earliest memories I have of Lawler. I'm quote unquote getting to as my school clothes on, got picked up from school, drove straight to Louisville, Kentucky. Jim Cornette takes the picture. Cornette's probably the one said, "Hey, put the crown on, make a fist." Lawler told me to make a fist. Anyway, so it kind of starts there. And through the years, and then again, when I broke in, it brought Lawler back from his loser leave step. And then, I was his partner as the young kid in the first couple of times when I was in my first year. And then I worked with him a little bit more. And then through the years, I've worked at him over in Oklahoma. We did a spot show in 2014 or 15 and went like 35 minutes. Down around Memphis, we've had a couple of shows that we would go quite a ways. We've done our Broadways, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's just so many memories. But and I can remember, like, I'll call it, in my quote, that's the shot right there. I think that's over in Oklahoma. We went quite a while, and Lawler had on his working boots, and it kind of caught me off guard. I said, all right, we're going to go tonight. Man, we went a while. But Lawler walking out in, and I'm not going to say just Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville, but in the territory, you go to a spot show that's red hot, and you may have, whatever, 1,000, 1,200 people jam packed in a high school gym. And, first match, babyface walks through the curtain. They get the girls screaming and a big pop. And, there may be a guy on second or third that has some TV time to get a reaction. But then at the end of the night, you go to the ring, and it was really by far a truly another level. Everybody in this arena stand up. If there's a Kiwanis club or a quarterback club that are the sponsor, all of those guys, they leave what they're doing. They leave the concession stand. The coaches are over in the corner. The people at the box office or whatever it is, they all would come in and say, oh, I'm watching Lawler. He just had a completely different level of stardom in so many ways. And so having the luxury to get to work with him many, many times through the years, it is something else. And I used to love to hear young guys that would come in the territory and had never worked with Lawler and then have a match, and they could not believe Lawler, the ventriloquist, how he literally would talk to you the entire match. And I mean, he could carry on a conversation, and all you had to do is just listen. And the people, I mean, now you hear people, talent, screaming spots, and the cameras pick it up and all that kind of stuff. They used to drive Lawler crazy, but Lawler could carry on a conversation with you in the ring while things are going on, and the people sitting on the front row would never have a clue. I mean, he was uber talented on every level. Yes, his punches, psychology to another level. Wasn't afraid of the big bump when it was time. The Eddie Gilbert situation is probably one of the highlights of that. But man, I can't say enough good things about Lawler, bell to bell, that I think is so underappreciated this day and age, that if some of it, I'm not saying, oh, you should be a throwback, but there are certain pieces of psychology that would work better today than they did way back when, because back then, but man, Lawler's transitions and how to seamlessly put a story together, I can't put on enough praise just how good Lawler was.
Who do you consider his best opponents? Dundee, Bockwinkel, Dutch Mantel, somebody else?
It's hard. I mean, to me, it'd be really hard to discount Dundee. They had great chemistry. Hype promos, a Lawler versus Idol match. You just said, I got to be there. Lawler versus Dutch had a different kind of psychology. Lawler against a Jimmy Hart opponent that would be built up. Lawler Valiant was huge. I'll tell you what, I thought for the era, Lawler against Bret Hart, it wasn't the 5-star classic, but those two guys got their heads together. And I'm not going to say that it was a clash of styles, and neither one of them would probably put each other as far as their top 5 opponents. And I hope this comes across the right way. But for me, I thought it was super compelling because Lawler and his quick wit, and he just dominated certain aspects of that story because he could talk so well. But you knew Bret was the hit man, and he was going to fight not just for himself, but the honor of his family. I thought they had a hell of a program. I think I got to put Bret in there somewhat as well. Bockwinkel, man, there's so many. But I guess I'd have to go as far as drawing the most money. It'd be Dundee, hands down. The longevity is incredible.
What do you think your favorite match with Lawler was? Just your personal match, you and him.
I mean, I would come through, and I call it not the curtain, get back to the dressing room in a high school gym and many spot shows, and literally wish, damn, I would have gone another 10 or 15 minutes. But Lawler, there are so many of those kind of matches that organically, I mean, just the people were on fire. I think the first 60-minute Broadway, I was a little unsure because at the time it felt like we hadn't done, not me and Lawler, but as a promotion, very few matches that went past 30-ish, and we were going to double that. I was a little concerned, but about 35 or 40 into it, I remember thinking, holy shit, we've got all that. I know where Lawler wants to go at the end. He's far from, I mean, just here we go. One of the 60-minute Broadways would have to be one of my favorites. He's a master. I mean, an orchestra conductor like none other.
Well, it's time for the big reveal. Number one, if you're a longtime listener here on My World, you probably have no doubt who is number one on Jeff's list of top 5 in-ring opponents that he's had. Shawn Michaels. Probably no surprise here. You've held him in high regard for a long time. Why is Shawn number one?
Oh, man. Body of work that me and him did. And I know it's not, me and Flair from the first time we took, well, that's probably an anomaly, but Lawler, but me and Shawn, late 80s, last time we touched mid 90s. So, but about a 6-year, but I felt, when I think of an opponent that I've had that when he's not working with me, I think the best match Triple H was ever in, Shawn Michaels. The best match Undertaker ever in, Shawn Michaels. Maybe the best match Kurt Angle's ever been, Shawn Michaels. Maybe the best match Jericho's in, Brett. I mean, there's multiples we could go into here that you go, okay. The minute I start thinking, yeah, Jeff, you were pretty good back in this. Shawn was the Larry Bird. That's the comment that, no, I didn't call him Larry Bird. I called him the Michael Jordan of professional wrestling. Because when you look at Michael and all his accolades, he's the only guy, was an MVP and, that's done it. He did it 4 times and all this. But when you really look at the greatness of MJ is that he won in a team sport 6 straight titles, 3, then he left for 2 years and came back being off. It's unbelievable. People don't know how radical of a fundamental change. You take off 2 years and then insert the one guy essentially back in the lineup, and then they go through the grueling NBA playoffs. He makes everybody better, exponentially better. Bird did that. You can look at Bird the first year he got really hurt and he was off the entire season. I think it was a 45 win game swing. They lost 45 more. It's a crazy stat. I don't know exactly what it is, but Shawn's ability with not just me, with everybody to have not good, not great, but possibly the very best performance you've ever had. And I kind of look at when I got lucky. I got lucky. 95, Shawn maybe being in his athletic prime. I think I was maybe in my athletic prime. We didn't have much of a build up for that IC title match. And it was kind of in a different era and a transition and on it in your house. But they had come off of Diesel and Backlund as a champion. The whole company was in a transition and they were going with Shawn was a heel and let's get him babyface. There were so many kind of factors that behind the scenes, and I'm dealing with Road Dogg and he's failing the test. drug test and creative. And in my opinion, Vince wanted to rush the music thing, all kinds of factors that were kind of not working for any of us. But, me and Sean get the opportunity to go out on a 2-hour pay-per-view, and I sang for 15 and got to have a 20, 25, 30-minute match. And so upwards of almost an hour of a 2-hour show. It was a really, really one of my career highlights. But his ability, and I've talked about here on Sean taught me so many things in the early days, how to work a 10-minute Broadway that had a completely different psychology that you can move out. When I first got to WWF 93, we were tag partners on that. He taught me a lot of things as I was working with Scott Razor. And then when we teamed up, me and him against Kevin and Scott, and then Road Dogg in the mix and all kinds of things. And so there's nothing Sean couldn't do as an in-ring performer in so many ways. And I just, when I really sat back and look at who's the GOAT that I've been in the ring with, Kurt's great, Lawler's great, Flair's great, AJ's phenomenal, but there's only one Sean.
Well, there you go. Those are Jeff's picks for his top 5 all-time in-ring opponents. Now, that's what Jeff thought. He was in the ring with them, but who are your favorite top 5 Jeff Jarrett opponents? We want to hear that below. We want a fan perspective. Who do you think Jeff had his best matches with? Let us know below. And we actually have a suggestion here. Maddie, he listed his favorite Jeff opponents coming in at number 5, China. I don't know that I would have guessed that one.
How about that?
How about at number 4, Effie? He's just looking for the heat today. Raven at number 3, and then Angle and Sting. I know we even saw a comment that said, hey, how is Bryan Danielson not on the list here? I guess you really only had one match with him, right?
Yeah, one single. I mean, he there's no doubt if we do other top 5s and I take me out of the equation, I'm just looking across the board.
Right.
I'd have to really think it through, but yeah, he's, as far as the best in-ring performers, I'm probably giving away one of the 5 or one of the 10 that will eventually get to the list. He's in there. I just I didn't want to put him in that list. I've only been in there one time. I don't know. Maybe that's my OCD.
Maddie, who's with us here live, wants to know, will we see Jeff Jarrett and Shawn Michaels in Saudi Arabia in a couple of years?
I'm ready. Sean, no, God almighty.
I love you.
Maddie, you're feeling good today, Wrestling Pedigree.
SaveWithConrad.com. My name's Daryl. Came from Massachusetts and I moved to Wisconsin. And there's a lot of people that might be asking, why go with Conrad? Why go with Supreme Lending? And let me tell you something, brother. I think about the credentials, the tag team partner that I'd be working with. First of all, we got the Podfather himself, Conrad. How can you go wrong with that? And then also go on to SaveWithEric.com, which, who else could have kicked Vince's ass for 83 consecutive weeks? You can't beat that duo right there. But they did bring a secret weapon, and I didn't realize this because this was not advertised. I worked closely with Larry the Axe Thompson. And let me tell you, with all the stress with moving across the country with a large family that I have, it was reassuring to know that I had the enforcer at my back, handling questions from the other side of sellers, the other side with trying to find the right prices. He took care of all that. All I had to do was keep my eye on the prize and make it there to Wisconsin. They were absolutely fantastic. They checked in on me, especially Francis, very patient with me. I don't go through this process all the time, so I trusted the experts. I was able to call them. They called me if they had questions, and it felt like it was a personal arrangement. There was even a point in which, from the seller side, they wanted something else that wasn't part of the norm. Francis straight up told me, hey, we're loyal to you. We'll do whatever you want to do, and we'll make sure that you guys are taken care of. They came through. I made it to the dream. I'm the champion of my own destiny here. They were able to help pave the way for me and my family. I couldn't be more happy with the results. I went from having less than an acre to now 20 acres worth of land. They made that dream a reality. I'm Daryl, and I'm living in Friendship, Wisconsin, in my dream home, thanks to SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.